Are you a crier? Are you a crier? Are you someone who's highly sensitive? Perhaps you cry at certain scenes in movies that you have seen tons of times. Or maybe you are just really sensitive and things break your heart or they get to you and you cry. Now, I am a crier. I don't cry a lot, but when the tears come, I allow them to come, except in certain situations, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But I think about just when I watch certain movies, take Sleepless in Seattle, for example. I don't know how many times I've watched that movie, but at the end of that movie, hate to give away a spoiler, but I think most people have probably seen it. When Meg Ryan's character and Tom Hanks' character and his little son are on top of the Empire State Building, I sit there sobbing every single time. My goodness, I've made no secret that I'm a Stranger Things fan. When Dart, the demi dog or whatever he was, Dustin's pet, died, I cried. I watched that episode a second time a few weeks ago and I still cried when Dart died. Now, there have been times in my life when I've had to really hold back the tears, and I've mentioned this in previous messages. I think one of my biggest examples is when my late husband was in the hospital for a couple of months in Athens, Georgia, following a head on collision with a dump truck. I never cried in front of him when he was in ICU, when he was on another floor of the hospital, really hoping that his leg would be saved. I never shed a tear in front of him. Now, goodness knows, I would go out to the track at the University of Georgia and cry as I ran. I would go back to my hotel room and cry myself to sleep. But it was important to me to show up with a positive attitude and a smile on my face and not to let him see that I was hurting too. Recently, I went through something, and you may have read a couple of my blogs, but it was, whew, I've been through a lot in my life. I feel the tears coming now. I'm not going to cry. I've been through a lot in my life, but I don't think anything has shaken me or jolted me the way this did. And for the first week after this happened, the first few days especially, I was still trying to show up in the world, even though I was barely sleeping. And so my church is kind of woven into this when I think about it. I can think of 5 public places where I broke down crying in that first week. One of the first ones was at the gym where I work out. And one of my fellow parish council members from church was there working out, and he just happened to say, "Amy, how are you?" And I lost it. I just started crying. And he took my arm and he says, "Here, let's go out here." And we went out into the hallway. He asked me if I was okay. I just told him what happened in like 3 sentences. And he said, "How can I help you?" And I said, "Just pray. Pray for me, pray for that person. That's the biggest thing you can do." He says, "I will absolutely do that." And I couldn't go to church for a couple of weeks because I was afraid I would cry. So one of my dearest friends who knew about this, because I had shared this episode with her in the gym, she thanked him for being there for me. And he said something like, "Well, I barely know her." And she goes, "That doesn't matter. We're all a part of this church community." My heart. Then I was in Trader Joe's and I ran into our former pastoral associate who is now a realtor. First time I've seen her in person in years. And we both just lit up and she said, "How are you?" And I lost it. So she put her arms around me and she allowed me to cry on her shoulder. Then I walked into a parish council meeting. Thank goodness my priest wasn't there yet, but I don't think it would have mattered. And I shed some tears and I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay. Then I went to my lecture workshop, which we have once a year for those of us who stand up and proclaim God's word at church. And what I was going through, along with a little health scare that one of my sons had, just made the tears come up. I walked into a room of about 30 people, maybe 40, and I just broke down crying. And then the fifth time, and there may have been others, my son in Hawaii treated me to a massage. And as I was lying with my face down on the massage table, The tears, the tears were just coming. And I told the masseuse, I said, look, I'm just going through something and I am visualizing you massaging the hurt and the heartbreak out of my body. So these tears are good. They're good. You know, when I was grief coaching, I worked with several clients who could not cry, could not cry. And I won't share how I helped them get some tears out of them. But my point is, if you need to cry, let it go. And it doesn't matter who you're in front of. You know, just let it go. I have often mentioned the book, The Body Keeps the Score, which was written by a medical doctor, Bessel van der Kolk. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Our bodies hold grief. Our bodies hold trauma. We can breathe it out. We can move it out. We can write it out. We can cry it out. Tears are our friends. I feel at this point I don't have a lot of tears left in me. I hope that's not tested. But let the tears flow when they need to flow. It's a beautiful thing. It's God's gift to us. So chew on that, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day and a wonderful week.